Friday. Gridiron 360, Dave and Bill. Hitting you back with more of the big dudes on the interior of the defensive line. In the Southeastern Conference, we're talking D tackles in the SEC. We just ripped off the top four. Mr. Javon Kinlaw from South Carolina, Mr. Derek Brown from Auburn, Mr. Raekwon Davis from Alabama, and Mr. Justin Matabuke from Texas A&M. So now what we're going to do, and hopefully we can get them all in here. I see 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 other guys in the SEC at the defensive tackle position, at the interior defensive lineman position that are eligible for the draft. So we're going to start to go through a few of these guys. We will start with the Arkansas Razorbacks. Arkansas. A gentleman by the name of McTelvin Agim.
McLovin
Agim. He is from Texarkana, Texas. Senior, 6'3", 309, 33.5-inch arms, 10 1/8-inch hands. Ran a 4.98 at the combine, 27 reps on the bench. Let's see. Yeah. Agim is how you pronounce the last name. So it's McTelvin Agim. All right. Let's see. He was, this is 2018. 2018, he led the team with 10 tackles for loss. He started 12 games, 10 tackles for loss, 45 tackles overall, 4.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. Last year, he had 39 tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, and forced a fumble. And again, 12 starts. A guy that has been been there and done that. He's not a one-hit wonder. But you're talking about an Arkansas team, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that left a lot to be desired. As good as he may have been, and maybe the rest of his team was just that bad, it's a team game, folks. And that team performed not well. And when I think about some of the games they had against not even SEC opponents, but lesser conferences that they played, maybe even some schools that I hearken to say might have been D2, but close to it. And it just, even still, that defense was none too impressive. No. So it makes it hard. I haven't watched a whole lot of tape on McTelvin, but it makes it hard for me when I don't see even that a guy stand out in a defense that wasn't very good.
Yeah, here's something kind of interesting. This guy, he did not play full-time D-line or D-tackle until his last year is one of the write-ups on him. But what I like is his productivity still increased from a sack and disruption standpoint. When they moved him inside full-time, he's going to need work. Certainly I see him more in like a 3 technique, a 1-gap situation. He's not, that's where he's, going to be. It's going to be more of that rushing gap control kind of D-tackle. But here's something I thought was kind of interesting about his bio. He was the Gatorade Arkansas Player of the Year, and as a senior, he had 24 sacks. Might have been a crappy league, but 24 sacks is pretty freaking big for a year.
You figure in high school, you probably play 9, 10 regular season games. Yeah. So even if you have postseason, maybe toss an extra couple, 3, 4 on there. So that's 2 a game minimum.
Yeah,
that's
wow. That's pretty awesome.
Pretty good.
Because I'm guessing he got. He was a 5-star guy, so but I'm guessing he got a lot of attention. But still, that's pretty impressive. Here's what I would tell you is if this guy moved to D tackle in 1 year, he's gonna have a lot of work in progress. Just to work through that, because there's a lot of skills you've got to learn to do that. That's gonna be tough to do in the NFL. Because you're not going to learn everything, and it's very different setting an edge than it is, playing on the interior.
Yep. So not a whole lot there, but again, we have a lot of guys to talk about. So let's move on from there, and we'll go over to LSU. Rashard Lawrence, that's a name you probably do know. Again, these are the national champs. D-tackle out of Monroe, Louisiana, a senior, 6'2", 308, 34 and an eighth inch arms, 11-inch hands. Big fucking hands.
Those are like tennis rackets.
That's like Mickey Mouse gloves on your hands. Okay. Ran a 5.07 40, 22 reps on the bench. That's not great. 803 three-cone drill. He had he had knee injury trouble his junior year, I think 2018. Kept him out of spring training going into the 2019 season. Also had some ankle injury trouble during this past season, but he did have 28 tackles, 6 for loss, 2.5 sacks, 3 pass breakups. Started 11, 12 games, so he did miss a little time, but was able to play through it. Also earned second-team All-SEC honors. So even despite the ankle issue throughout the year, and you're talking about a defense in LSU that has a lot of that was very good, has a lot of ballers on that team, and Lawrence is one of them, man. I mean, like, his name came up often.
Yeah, I mean, the hard part's going to be, I mean, obviously you want to take LSU as a whole and talk about how dominant they were, but they were really dominant because of their offense.
Mm-hmm.
Their defense was not always spectacular, but we do know they were pretty strong in the back end.
Yeah.
Which, when you're giving up those kind of points and you're strong in the back end, it does make me question a little bit on the line and in the linebacking core how much work you're putting in. To give up those kind of points when I mean, they've got a kid that's a freshman, and they got another guy that's going to come out this year.
Stingley.
That, these guys were,
awesome.
They were very good.
And I will say this, too. I mean, you're talking about a team that really defense was okay most of the year, but they gave up some points. I mean, they gave up like 38 points to Vandy early in the year. They gave up a crap load of points to Ole Miss at the end of the year. So there was a lot. That was the biggest thing, especially when they were ranking the top 4 in the college football playoff, is that defense worthy? And we knew the offense was, but is the defense worthy enough when they get to that next level of competition? And I will tell you this, and that after that Ole Miss game late in the year, that defense all of a sudden, they heard the chirps. Whether it was them themselves or the coaches, and like, you guys coming out, you guys suck. Apparently everyone thinks you suck, because they got much better at the end of the year, much better, to the point where they made their playoff run and championship run against Oklahoma and us, and they were solid as shit.
Yeah, I would like to have seen a better pass rush, even nonetheless that they got better. I mean, this was a team that was up early in a lot of games, which what happens. Your team starts passing, you pin your ears back, and you go at it. So I kind of take that as a double-edged sword. They did definitely play better, and against tough competition, they showed they were good.
Yep.
Because I mean, even though Oklahoma has, in my mind, one of the worst defenses I've seen in a playoff game, they did have a very good offense.
Yes.
And they got shut down pretty well.
Yep.
So take it kind of both ways. I see this guy more of like a mid-round guy. Maybe like a fifth round potential kind of guy. He's got some things to like about him, but I think overall I don't see a lot of polish there that really gets me excited.
Yeah.
I think we're going to kind of find some of that as we kind of go through the rest of this list.
All right, well, let's move on to the next guy, and that is a gentleman by the name of Jordan Elliott, D-tackle for Missouri. He is a redshirt junior. He's from Missouri City, Texas. 6'4", 302, 32 and 3/8 inch arms, 10 1/4 inch hands, ran a 5.02 40, 24 on the bench, 4.73 shuttle. Here's something I thought interesting. They do on some of these, they gave, again, we look at a lot of sites, but I use, when it comes down to the nitty gritty, I look at the NFL draft combine profile, and they'll give a prospect grade, and I don't really look into the grading much, but underneath some of the grades, they'll project. They'll some of them will say, some won't, if what they think is going to end up with this guy. And this one says that they believe he'll be a starter within his first 2 seasons in the NFL. That's interesting.
Yeah, Missouri, I mean, we watched a little bit of Missouri. It kind of waned. They didn't start off real well. Then they started playing better because then they lose their first game to somebody really bad, if I remember. Wyoming, yeah. But then they kind of got going, and then they fell off again.
Mm-hmm.
They don't fit the SEC very well at this point, I think, in style of play and all that. Like, I don't kind of group them in with that same especially with, either a tough defense, even though this year was the year of the offense in the SEC.
He led the team, this past season with 10 tackles for loss.
Yep.
He had 3 sacks. Looks like 44 total tackles. Started 12 games, so that's all of them. I mean, that kind of jumped off the page at me when I see that. It's not like I buy into completely what they're saying here, but the fact that, again, we just talked about a couple guys maybe not be high up, but in Rashard Lawrence and in McTelvin Agim, and neither of them they have their grades, but neither of them say anything underneath it. This for Elliott, it says he'll be a starter within the first 2 seasons. That's interesting.
Yeah,
maybe I need to do a little more tape work on him.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that seems to me, based off kind of looking at dates and some of these things, that kind of has moved up in the process. Maybe it's more time looking at tape. Unfortunately, right now, there's just not as much analysis out there. I think teams are doing their own work because they're not communicating with each other because they're not able to. Yeah, they're not sitting on the sidelines at pro days and all that stuff. So it's a little bit more hidden what people see. But this guy's probably got some development that he needs to do. But it just appears to me from what I keep seeing that he's got some tremendous upside. Again, it's hard. Again, we're not breaking down tape of every single team, and Missouri just wasn't the draw to watch. So I got to be honest with you. I'd be lying if I said I had a lot to give on this guy. But I do notice that, he wasn't really in the list 4 months ago, and then he kind of started getting into lists, and then now I'm starting to see him where, this guy's name's getting above guys like, Madubuike and Agim. Is it Agim, you said?
Agim.
So this guy could be somebody of interest to watch.
Okay, great. Next guy. We've got, who's next?
You want to do Benito?
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Benito Jones.
Cajones? Benito Jones, defensive tackle from the Ole Miss Running Rebels, senior from Waynesboro, Mississippi at 6'1", so on the shorter side, 316 pounds on the heavier side. That's very much like Grady Jarrett. 32 7/8 inch arms, 9 3/4 inch hands, 5'2", 640. Had a 5'2", 720-yard coner. He is, let's see, he did get better as through his seasons at Ole Miss this past season. He garnered second-team All-ACC honors. He led the Ole Miss Rebels on the defense in tackles. He had 30 total tackles, 10 for loss, 5.5 sacks. Started 10 games, so didn't start all of them. I'm trying to see if there was injury concerns. Yeah, so I don't know a whole lot about Mr. Jones. And, again, kind of similar to, McTelvin Agim from Arkansas. You're talking about a team, despite whatever troubles they're having, that have off the field or from Hugh Freeze or what have you, these are the guys that were on the field. And though they do play in the toughest conference, in the toughest division in college football, left a lot to be desired on the defensive side of the ball with Ole Miss. I mean, even when they had players like Kimdichie and stuff, their defense had some players. It wasn't all around, but those guys jumped off the page because they were players. I don't think Ole Miss has a whole lot of these players still. So I say that to say is, you got a guy here, if he's going to, take the opportunity, especially before making it to the next level, to showcase himself and jump off the page. He doesn't have a lot of competition around him to show him up, but where is he? Because I didn't hear a whole lot of his name called, and certainly their defense wasn't great.
Yeah, I mean, but I kind of look at it and go back to stats. One, getting recognized in the SEC is a good thing because you're going to be, again, we talked about, look at Auburn's line. I mean, as an example, you got Kinlaw, that's in there. I mean, these are 2 first-round guys, and he's getting second-team SEC honors. And I look at some of the stats, 10 tackles for loss and 5.5 sacks from the interior on a weak team is very good. He was consistent. I mean, this guy he was a 5-star guy coming out, a top 50 recruit. I mean, so.
Strength says country strong with good durability.
So he learned what he
Country!
He was cutting wood.
Country strong!
But, I got to say, these are, as we get down to some of these prospects, I don't have a lot of detail to offer in them. But
No, but I said it when I read his measurables. I mean, that's much, and I even think Grady's shorter than 6'1". He might be 5'11", 6 foot, but he's like that. The shorter but really stout, knows how to use his leverage and plays in the backfield. So, I guess maybe you're starting to sway me a little bit here with what you're saying, because that kind of really sings true to when I look at a guy like Grady Jarrett, and then you tell me this guy who's similar in stature, 10 tackles for loss and 5.5 sacks. Yes, that is a lot, especially from the interior D-line.
And going against some of the offenses.
He played a lot. That tells me he played a lot of his game in the backfield. Yep. And that can be, that might be something.
Yeah,
Jones!
He's getting looked at as a guy, again, like I just mentioned about Jordan Elliott, he's a heck of a lot closer to the Raekwon Davis and the Justin Madubuike in their grading than some of these other guys we've mentioned in Nageem and Rashard Lewis. So, and again, you are challenged sometimes by the team that you play around. So this could be a guy that maybe he's got a little more.
Okay. So we've hit a lot. We're taking a while, and we want to wrap this up soon. So I'm going to run through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 other names at defensive tackle in the SEC that are eligible for this year's draft. May get picked up, may be an undrafted free agent, maybe a practice squad guy, maybe not get drafted, but we will see. The first name I want to mention, we're not going to spend time on these guys, but I do want to mention this guy, and that is from Honolulu, Hawaii, senior for the LSU Tigers at 6'2", 291 pounds, Braden Fehoko.
Mukalaki Hiki.
He had 8 solo tackles, half sack, not a lot. He was a guy that rotated in. I don't know that he was necessarily their full-time starter, but the reason I wanted to bring him up first, and I'll share this to our Facebook page, if you remember, and I don't know what game it was that this year during the walk-in for the Tigers, Mr. Fehoko's dad and brother were there on the other side of the fence, and he proceeded to stop and give them love, and then all 3 of them did the haka dance.
You know what? That sticks out. Now that you mentioned that.
Yes, it was good. We're like,
sticking the tongue out. Yeah.
It's really good, actually. I loved it. I thought it was great. I mean, look, this is their heritage. So I'll share that post. But Fehoko is out there, potential for this draft, and I don't know if he'll get drafted, but crazier things have happened. People might remember that. Then be like, maybe he's on LSU. Hey, let's move on. Another guy from Ole Miss, defensive tackle from Douglasville, Georgia, redshirt senior, Mr. Josiah Coatney. He's 6'3", 308 pounds. 32 3/4 arms, 10-inch hands, ran a 5.2 140, 22 on the bench, a 4.82 20-yard shuttle. Comp I see on him is like a Carlos Watkins from Houston, former Clemson Tiger. Let's see, Chauncey Rivers. Miss State. This is a guy whose name that I'm familiar with just for the mere fact that I remember watching him in high school. He's from Stone Mountain, Georgia.
Got a lot of Georgia boys.
Yeah, redshirt senior, 6'2", 262. So on the smaller side for a D tackle, 32 and 7/8 inch arms, 9 and 3/4 inch hands. But he only threw 20 reps up on the bench, but he ran a 4.97, so he's a 4.7 20-yard shuttle. So he is a little bit faster than most of these D tackles. Moving on, Tyler Clark from the University of Georgia Bulldogs, a senior from Americus, Georgia, at 6'4", 300 pounds. This last season, he had 11 solo tackles, 2.5 for loss. 2.5 sacks. I don't see tackles for loss, fumbles, interceptions, a zero. Who else we got? Adam Schuler from the University of Florida Gators, a senior from Longwood, Florida, at 6'4", 275 pounds. 2019, he had 11 solo tackles, had 3.5 sacks. PD, what's that? Punt defense?
Pass defense.
Pass defense. One pass defense. No picks, no fumbles. Again, interior defensive lineman. Let's see. Another guy from the Arkansas Razorbacks defensive tackle Jamario Bell, a senior from Junction City, Arkansas, at 6'5", 265. So on the taller side, but light, especially at D tackle. Had 10 tackles this past season, 4.5 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. Got what? 3 more guys? 2 more guys. Moving along steadily. Mississippi State Bulldogs. Fletcher Adams, a senior from Brandon, Mississippi, at 6'2", 265. Let's see. In 2019, he had 13 total tackles, 7 solo, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, no picks. Again, 6'2", 265. And last but not least, from the University of Georgia Bulldogs, David Marshall, a senior from Thomaston, Georgia, at 6'3", 274. Had 13 total tackles last year, 4 solo, no sacks, no fumbles, no picks. I don't know that he was their starter. I think he rotated in.
All right.
That covers them all, man. So there's a lot here, but this is, I think, a deep defensive tackle draft class overall outside of the SEC, too. There's a lot of guys we have yet to talk about between the Big 10, Big 12, and Pac-12. We mentioned a few guys in the ACC, not so many interior, a few edge guys, but a couple D tackles. But in particular, the last cast with the top 4, Javon Kinlaw, Derek Brown, Raekwon Davis, Justin Matabuke, and maybe toss in guys like your Jordan Elliott. There's some guys that'll be drafted here, some that probably won't just because it's deep. But I think that covers it, my man Dave.
Sounds
we
good.
got the interior of the defense, or the whole defensive line we've covered here today, and we'll cut this up. Then we'll jump back in. We'll move to the midsection. The midsection, your linebackers, inside, outside, even though some might have been
the non-edge.
The non-edge outside linebackers. So appreciate y'all listening. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.
As always, on the gridiron.
See you.